When basketball legend Michael Jordan unexpectedly walks into a Chicago courtroom during 19-year-old Darius Wilson's breaking and entering trial, no one knows what to expect. The teenager was caught practicing basketball after hours in a community center. A crime born of desperation and dreams. As Jordan approaches the bench and asks to speak on behalf of the young defendant, Judge Gloria Martinez can only nod in stunned silence. What follows is a story of second chances, hidden connections, and how a single act of kindness can ripple across generations, leaving even the most seasoned judge at a loss for words. The clock on the wall of Courtroom 302 at the Cook County Courthouse ticked loudly in the quiet room. Judge Gloria Martinez had seen thousands of faces during her 15 years on the bench. Most were scared. Some were angry. A few were hopeful. But today was different. Case number 2025, CR 4587, People versus Wilson, Darius, called out the clerk. In a bored voice, Darius Wilson stood up slowly from the hard wooden bench. His public defender, Ms. Chen, nodded at him to move forward. His hands shook as he walked to the table at the front of the courtroom. The 19-year-old wore a white button-up shirt that hung loose on his thin frame. His mom had ironed it 3 times that morning, trying to make the old shirt look presentable. Darius Wilson, you are charged with breaking and entering at the West Side Community Center on April 15th of this year, Judge Martinez said, looking down at her papers. How do you plead? Before Ms. Chen could prompt him, the heavy doors at the back of the courtroom swung open with a loud creak. Everyone turned to look. Time seemed to stop. A man stood in the doorway, so tall he nearly had to duck to enter. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than Darius's mom made in 3 months. His bald head gleamed under the fluorescent lights. But it was his presence, more than his height or his clothes, that made every person in the room freeze. Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player who ever lived, was walking into courtroom. 302, Your Honor, the bailiff started to say, but his voice cracked. He cleared his throat and tried again. Your Honor, there's a visitor. Judge Martinez's mouth hung open slightly, her reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. In 15 years, nothing had ever made her pause during court proceedings. Not crying babies, not angry outbursts, not even the time a mouse ran across her desk. But now, her gavel hung suspended in midair. Michael Jordan walked down the center aisle with long, confident strides. His security team, 2 large men in dark suits, followed a few steps behind. People in the gallery pulled out their phones to take pictures. No photos in my courtroom, Judge Martinez finally managed to say, though her voice lacked its usual stern tone. The phones disappeared, but all eyes remained fixed on Jordan. Darius couldn't breathe. The Michael Jordan, number 23, 6 NBA championships, 5 MVP awards. The man whose poster had hung above his bed since he was 6 years old. The reason he played basketball, the reason Darius looked down at his hands, suddenly remembering why he was in court today. Michael Jordan stopped at the gate separating the gallery from the court area. May I approach, Your Honor? He asked in that deep, familiar voice that had sold everything from basketball shoes to underwear to Gatorade. Judge Martinez nodded, seemingly unable to find words. The bailiff hurried to open the gate. Jordan walked forward, stopping next to Darius. He was even taller up close. Darius had to tilt his head back to see Jordan's face. The basketball legend smiled down at him briefly before turning to the judge. I apologize for interrupting your court, Your Honor, Jordan said. My name is Michael Jordan, and I'd like permission to speak regarding the case of Darius Wilson. A murmur swept through the courtroom. Ms. Chen's eyes were as wide as dinner plates. The prosecutor, a young man named Adams who had been checking his watch repeatedly before Jordan arrived, now sat up straight, his full attention on the basketball star. "Mr. Jordan," Judge Martinez said, finding her judicial voice again. "This is highly unusual. May I ask what your interest is in this case?" Jordan nodded respectfully. "Yes, Your Honor. I recently became aware of Mr. Wilson's situation, and I believe I have information that may be relevant to these proceedings." Darius's heart pounded so hard he could feel it in his throat. Michael Jordan knew who he was? How was that possible? "Your Honor," Ms. Chen said, rising to her feet. "As counsel for Mr. Wilson, I'd like to request a brief recess to confer with Mr. Jordan." She stumbled over the name, as if she couldn't believe she was saying it. The prosecutor jumped up too. "The state has no objection, Your Honor." Judge Martinez looked at the clock on the wall. "We'll take 15 minutes, she said, then banged her gavel. "Court is in recess." As she stood to leave, she paused and looked directly at Jordan. For a moment, the stern judge looked like an excited fan. "It's an honor to have you in my courtroom." "Mr. Jordan," she said, then quickly disappeared through the door behind her bench. The moment the judge left, the courtroom erupted in whispers. People pointed and stared. Some tried to approach, but Jordan's security team kept them back. "Mr. Wilson," Jordan said, turning to Darius, "is there somewhere we can talk privately?" Darius tried to speak, but no words came out. He nodded instead. Ms. Chen found her voice. "We can use the conference room, Mr. Jordan. Follow me, please." As they walked out, Darius's mom, Teresa, caught his eye from the gallery. Her expression was a mix of confusion and hope. Darius gave her a small nod, trying to look confident, even though his knees felt like jelly. In the small conference room, Jordan sat across from Darius. Ms. Chen took a seat at the end of the table, legal pad ready. "Do you know why I'm here, Darius?" Jordan asked. Darius shook his head. "No, sir. I can't believe you're really here." Jordan smiled. It was the same smile Darius had seen 1,000 times on TV, but now it was directed at him. "I heard about what happened at the community center," Jordan said. "About how you were breaking in after hours." Darius looked down at his hands, shame washing over him. "I wasn't stealing anything, sir. I was just playing basketball," Jordan finished for him. "I know. That's why I'm here." Darius looked up in surprise. "You see, Darius," Jordan continued, his voice low and serious, "your story reminded me of something from a long time ago." He leaned forward, his elbows on the table. "And I think it's time I paid back an old debt." "What debt?" Darius asked, confusion clear on his face. Before Jordan could answer, Ms. Chen glanced at her watch. "We should head back soon. The recess will be over in a few minutes." Jordan nodded. "We'll talk more after court," he promised Darius. "But first, I'd like to speak to the judge about your case. Is that okay with you?" Darius nodded quickly. "Yes, sir, of course." They returned to the courtroom just as Judge Martinez took her seat. The room was now packed. Word had spread throughout the courthouse that Michael Jordan was there. Lawyers, clerks, and even other judges had found excuses to squeeze into courtroom. 3:02. "Court is back in session," Judge Martinez announced, tapping her gavel once. She looked at Jordan. "Mr. Jordan, you wished to address the court?" "Yes, Your Honor." Jordan stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "Before I do, I'd like to request permission to bring in someone else who should be part of this conversation." The judge raised an eyebrow but nodded. Jordan motioned to one of his security guards, who opened the door. An older man with gray hair entered. He wore a blue janitor's uniform with West Side Community Center embroidered on the pocket. "This is Mr. Jacobs," Jordan explained. "He's the director of the community center where Darius was arrested." Mr. Jacobs looked nervous as he approached. He nodded respectfully to the judge. "Your Honor," Jordan continued, "I'd like to tell you about Darius Wilson." As Jordan began to speak, Darius's mind drifted back to how this had all started. The south side of Chicago was not an easy place to grow up. Their apartment was on the third floor of a building with broken elevators and drafty windows. Darius and his mom, Teresa, had lived there since he was born. His dad had left when Darius was 2, and he had no memory of the man. Teresa worked as a nursing assistant during the day, a cashier in the evenings, and cleaned office buildings on weekends. She was rarely home before Darius went to bed, but she always left him notes on the fridge. "Did your homework?" "Love you," "Mom," or "Leftovers," in the blue container. "Be good," "Mom." Their apartment was small but clean. The living room had a worn couch, a small TV, and a bookshelf filled with library books. Teresa believed education was the way out, and she insisted Darius read every day. But on his bedroom wall hung the one thing that gave Darius real hope: a poster of Michael Jordan soaring through the air. Basketball raised high, legs stretched in the famous Jumpman pose. Below it, in bold letters, "No limits." Darius had found the poster in a dumpster behind the community center when he was 6. Someone had thrown it away after a small tear appeared in the corner. Darius had carefully taped it and proudly hung it up. Every night, he fell asleep looking at it, dreaming of flying through the air just like Jordan. Basketball became his life. He wasn't naturally talented, too skinny, not very tall. But what he lacked in natural gifts, he made up for in hard work. Every day after school, he headed straight to the West Side Community Center. The center was old, with cracked floors and rims that sometimes didn't bounce the ball back. But it was free and safe. Mr. Jacobs, who ran the center, was strict but fair. "You want court time? You help out," he'd say. So Darius swept floors, organized equipment, and helped younger kids with homework to earn his basketball hours. By high school, Darius had improved enough to make the team, though he mostly sat on the bench. "You're not a natural star," his coach told him once, "but you work harder than anyone I've ever seen." Then came the budget cuts. The city reduced funding for after-school programs. The community center had to close at 6 p.m. instead of 9 p.m. For most kids, it was an inconvenience. For Darius, it was devastating. "I need more practice time, Mr. Jacobs," Darius pleaded. "College scouts will be watching next year. This is my only chance." Mr. Jacobs shook his head sadly. "I'm sorry, Darius. My hands are tied." That night, lying in bed staring at his Jordan poster, Darius made a decision. The next evening, instead of leaving when the center closed, he hid in the supply closet. After everyone left, he emerged and practiced for 3 more hours in the dark, using only the emergency lights. He did this for weeks, careful to clean up after himself and leave no trace. Sometimes he'd stay until 1 a.m., shooting free throws over and over, running drills alone in the dim light. His grades dropped as he fell asleep in class, but his basketball improved dramatically. His mom noticed something was wrong. "You look exhausted, baby," she said one morning, feeling his forehead for a fever. "Maybe you should take a break from basketball for a while." "I can't, Mom," he said. "This is my shot at a better life, for both of us." Teresa didn't push. She understood sacrifice better than most. Then came that fateful night in April. Darius was practicing as usual, when the lights suddenly flashed on. Officer Jenkins stood at the door, hand on his gun. "Don't move," the officer shouted. Darius froze, basketball in hand. "Hands up where I can see them." Darius dropped the ball and raised his hands slowly, after checking that Darius was alone. And, unarmed, Officer Jenkins relaxed slightly. "What are you doing here, kid? This place closed hours ago." "Just practicing, sir," Darius answered honestly. "You broke in to practice basketball?" The officer looked skeptical. "I didn't break anything," Darius explained. "I just stayed when they closed." It didn't matter. It was still breaking and entering. When they called Mr. Jacobs, Darius expected him to help explain. Instead, the center director's face hardened. "Press charges," Mr. Jacobs told the police. "These kids need to learn they can't do whatever they want." Darius snapped back to the present as he heard Jordan say his name again. The basketball legend was looking right at him. "Darius Wilson reminds me of myself at his age," Jordan told. The courtroom. Hungry, determined, willing to do whatever it takes to get better. He turned to the judge. "And that's why I believe he deserves a second chance." The courtroom was silent. Everyone hung on Jordan's words. Even Judge Martinez leaned forward in her chair. "Your Honor," Jordan continued, "I'd like to tell you what really happened the night Darius was arrested." "May I?" The judge nodded. "Please do, Mr. Jordan." Mr. Jacobs shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The prosecutor looked confused. This wasn't how trials usually went. "April 15th was a cold night in Chicago," Jordan began. Darius had finished his shift at the grocery store at 8:00 p.m. He'd been saving for new basketball shoes. His old ones had holes in the soles. Darius stared at Jordan. How did he know all this? The community center had closed at 6:00 p.m. due to budget cuts, Jordan continued. In the past, it had stayed open until 9:00 p.m., giving kids like Darius a safe place to practice. But the city cut funding, and Mr. Jacobs had to reduce hours. Mr. Jacobs nodded slowly, confirming Jordan's story. Darius did what I would have done at his age. What I did do, in fact, he found a way to practice anyway. He didn't break any windows. He didn't pick any locks. He simply hid in the supply closet until everyone left. Then he practiced for hours under the emergency lights. Judge Martinez looked at Darius. "Is this true, Mr. Wilson?" Darius nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." "He did this for weeks," Jordan said, "sacrificing sleep, risking trouble, all to get better at the game. All because he believes, like I've always believed, that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't. Work hard." Darius thought back to that night in April when everything changed. The ball swished through the net, his 20th straight free throw. Sweat dripped down his face as Darius retrieved the ball and dribbled back to the line. The emergency lights cast long shadows across the court, but he was used to them by now. 21, he counted, as the next shot went in. The sound of the ball bouncing echoed in the empty gym. There was something peaceful about being alone in this space. Just him and the game he loved. 22. His arms burned from fatigue. He'd been at it for nearly 3 hours already, but his goal was 25 straight free throws before he'd allow himself to leave. 23. Jordan's number. His lucky number. As he lined up for number 24, the gym suddenly blazed with light. Darius squinted, momentarily blinded. "Freeze! Police!" a voice shouted. Darius's heart nearly stopped. Standing at the gym entrance was a police officer, hand on his holstered gun. Officer Pete Jenkins, according to his name tag, was a tall man with a serious face and alert eyes that scanned the gym for other intruders. "Put the ball down and put your hands up," Officer Jenkins ordered. Darius immediately dropped the ball and raised his hands. "I'm not doing anything wrong," he said, his voice shaking. "You're trespassing on city property after hours," Officer Jenkins replied, walking toward him cautiously. "That's breaking and entering." "I didn't break anything," Darius protested. "I was just practicing." Officer Jenkins looked around the gym. Nothing was damaged. Nothing was stolen. Just a kid with a basketball. "How did you get in?" the officer asked. Darius explained about hiding in the supply closet. As he talked, the officer relaxed slightly, seeing that Darius wasn't a threat. "I'm going to need to call this in," Officer Jenkins said, reaching for his radio. "The center has a new security system, silent alarm. That's how we knew someone was in here." Darius's stomach sank. "Please, sir. I'm just trying to get better. I need a basketball scholarship, or I can't go to college." The officer's face softened slightly. "Look, kid, I get it, but rules are rules. We need to call the center director." 20 minutes later, Mr. Jacobs arrived, still wearing pajamas under his coat. His face hardened when he saw Darius. "This kid again," Mr. Jacobs said to the officer. "I've warned him about staying too late before." "Sir, he wasn't just staying late," Officer Jenkins explained. "He was hiding after closing and using the facility after hours." Mr. Jacobs's expression darkened further. "I want to press charges," he said firmly. "Mr. Jacobs, please," Darius begged. "I didn't hurt anything. I always clean up. I'm just trying to practice." "You think rules don't apply to you?" Mr. Jacobs asked sharply. "You think you're special? What about when other kids start doing the same thing? What happens when something gets broken or stolen, and my job is on the line?" "I would never," Darius started. "Save it," Mr. Jacobs cut him off. He turned to the officer. "Press charges. Make an example of him." Officer Jenkins looked uncomfortable but nodded. "Turn around, son," he said to Darius. "Hands behind your back." The cold metal of the handcuffs shocked Darius's wrists. This couldn't be happening. Not over basketball practice. "Can I at least call my mom?" he asked. "You can make a call from the station," Officer Jenkins said, not unkindly. As he was led out, Darius looked back at the basketball court. The ball still lay where he'd dropped it, his 24th free throw never attempted. At the police station, Darius got one phone call. His mom answered on the first ring, panic in her voice when she heard where he was calling from. "I'll be right there," she said. "Don't say anything until I get there." But when she arrived, the news was bad. Bail was set at $500, money they didn't have. Teresa called everyone she knew, but couldn't raise the full amount. Darius spent 3 nights in a holding cell, sharing space with drunk drivers and petty thieves. He didn't sleep. He couldn't eat. All he could think about was how disappointed his mom looked, how his dreams of college were slipping away, and how a basketball, the thing he loved most, had landed him in jail. "Your Honor," Jordan was saying as Darius's mind returned. To the present, what Darius did was wrong, technically, but his heart was in the right place. And I believe there's a better way to handle this than giving a promising young man a criminal record. The judge looked thoughtful. "I appreciate your perspective, Mr. Jordan, but the law is the law. Mr. Wilson did break into a city facility." "That's true," Jordan acknowledged, "but what if I told you I have a proposal that could turn this situation into something positive for everyone involved, including the community center?" Judge Martinez raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." Before Jordan could explain his proposal, the judge held up her hand. "Actually, Mr. Jordan, I'd like to hear more about how you came to be involved in this case." It's not every day that a sports legend appears in my courtroom for a breaking and entering case. Jordan nodded. That's a fair question, Your Honor. He glanced at Darius. It started with a newspaper article. The day after Darius's arrest, the Chicago South Side Herald ran a small story on page 8. Local teen arrested for breaking into community center to practice basketball. Darius Wilson, 19, was arrested Thursday night at the West Side Community Center, where police found him practicing basketball after hours. Center Director Howard Jacobs has pressed charges, citing repeated security concerns. Wilson's mother, Teresa Wilson, a local health care worker, says her son was only trying to improve his skills in hopes of earning a college scholarship. He's a good kid, she told reporters. Basketball is his only way out. Most people who read the article formed quick opinions. They should throw the book at him, said Mr. Patel, who owned the convenience store across from the community center. Today it's basketball, tomorrow someone breaks in to steal equipment. That boy wasn't hurting nobody, argued Mrs. Washington, an elderly woman who lived in Darius's building. These kids need somewhere to go besides the streets. The article might have been forgotten, buried under news of city politics and crime reports, if not for Maria Sanchez. Maria worked in the cafeteria at the Chicago Bulls training facility in Deerfield. For 23 years, she had served meals to players, coaches, and staff. She knew Darius. He had worked summers as a janitor at the facility, mopping floors and cleaning bathrooms to earn extra money. When Maria saw the article, she cut it out carefully. The next day, she placed it on the break room table where staff ate lunch. She didn't say anything about it. She didn't need to. The article sat there for days, read by dozens of people. That's a shame about that kid, one of the assistant coaches said over coffee. Yeah, but rules are rules, another replied. The security guard, who had worked at the Bulls facility for nearly 30 years, shook his head as he read it. Reminds me of someone, he muttered, but didn't elaborate. Meanwhile, the neighborhood around the community center was talking. Some parents stopped bringing their children to programs, concerned about security. Others started a petition to drop the charges against Darius. Teresa Wilson was too busy working extra shifts to pay for Darius's lawyer to notice the growing divide in the community. The public defender, Ms. Chen, had told her that with no prior record, Darius might get community service instead of jail time. But he would still have a criminal record. A criminal record would ruin his chances at a scholarship, Teresa worried as she rode the bus between jobs. His whole future gone over basketball practice. At the community center, Mr. Jacobs was having second thoughts. The morning after Darius's arrest, he'd found a neat stack of paper towels by the gym door. Darius had been using them to wipe up his sweat from the floor. There was no damage, no mess. Just a kid who loved basketball too much to stop practicing. But Mr. Jacobs had already pressed charges. The center's board of directors had commended him for taking a strong stance on security. Backing down now would make him look weak. Besides, rules were rules. As the story spread through the South Side, it reached Jamal Lewis, a former high school teammate of Darius, who now worked as a janitor at the Bulls practice facility. Jamal had seen the article in the break room and mentioned it to one of the equipment managers. Kid from my old neighborhood, Jamal explained. Used to play ball together. He could really shoot. The equipment manager mentioned it to one of the coaches, who brought it up during a staff meeting about community outreach programs. From there, word continued to spread. 1 week after Darius's arrest, while most of the staff had gone home for the day, Michael Jordan visited the practice facility. He still came occasionally to use the gym or meet with coaches. In the break room, he poured himself a cup of coffee and spotted the now well-worn newspaper clipping. Jordan read it twice. Something about the story tugged at him. a memory from long ago. He took a photo of the article with his phone. That night, in his downtown penthouse, Jordan made a call to his lawyer. "Marcus, I need you to find out about a case. Kid named Darius Wilson, arrested for breaking into a community center to practice basketball." His lawyer sounded confused. "Any particular reason?" Jordan stared out the window at the Chicago skyline. "Just find out when his court date is." The next morning, Marcus called back. "Court date is next Tuesday, 9 a.m., Cook County Courthouse. Judge Martinez presiding." "But Michael, you have that meeting with the foundation board that morning." "Reschedule it," Jordan said firmly. "Michael, these are busy people. We've had this on the calendar for months. They're flying in from all over the country to discuss the new youth center. Tell them something came up. This is important." "Can I ask why?" Marcus pressed. "This is just some kid who broke into a gym." Jordan was quiet for a moment. "Because 40 years ago, that some kid was me." In the courtroom, Jordan finished explaining how he'd learned about Darius's case. "When I read that article, Your Honor, I saw myself. I saw a kid who wanted to be better so badly that he was willing to risk everything just to practice. That's rare. That's special." Judge Martinez nodded thoughtfully. "I understand your interest in the case now, Mr. Jordan, but we still have the matter of the law to consider." "Yes, Your Honor," Jordan agreed. "And that's where my proposal comes in. I've spoken with my foundation team, and we'd like to offer a solution that benefits everyone, including Mr. Jacobs and the community center." Mr. Jacobs, who had been quietly listening, sat up straighter. The prosecutor looked intrigued. "Instead of giving Darius a criminal record," Jordan said, "what if we turned this into an opportunity to help the entire community?" The courtroom was silent again, waiting for Jordan to continue. Even the court reporter had stopped typing, her fingers hovering over the keys. Judge Martinez leaned forward. "What kind of opportunity, Mr. Jordan?" "Your Honor," Jordan began, "the Michael Jordan Foundation has been planning to expand our youth basketball programs in Chicago. We've been looking for the right location and community partners." He gestured toward Mr. Jacobs. "The West Side Community Center would be perfect." Mr. Jacobs's eyes widened. "We propose funding extended hours at the center, keeping it open until midnight, 3 nights a week. We'd create a supervised basketball program for teens and young adults who need a safe place to play and practice." Jordan looked at Darius. "And we'd like Darius to help run it, turning his community service into something meaningful." The prosecutor raised his hand slightly. "Your Honor, while this sounds generous, Mr. Wilson did commit a crime." "I understand," Jordan replied before the judge could speak. "Which is why our proposal includes Darius completing 200 hours of community service at the center, helping coach younger kids and maintaining the facilities. He'd make amends to the very place he's accused of wronging." Judge Martinez looked thoughtful. "Mr. Jacobs, as the complainant, what are your thoughts on this proposal?" All eyes turned to the community center director. Mr. Jacobs shifted in his seat. "It sounds beneficial to the center. But what happens after the community service hours are complete? Do we lose the funding?" "No," Jordan said firmly. "This would be a 3-year commitment from the foundation, regardless of Darius's involvement. Though we hope he'll stay on as a paid staff member after his community service is complete." The judge nodded slowly. "I'd like to take a short recess to consider this proposal. Court will resume in 30 minutes. As Jordan had made his proposal, Darius's mind had drifted back to the moment when everything changed for him. The previous week had been the worst of Darius's life. After 3 nights in a holding cell, he'd been released to his mother's custody. The tiny apartment that had always felt like a safe haven now felt like a prison. He couldn't bring himself to look at the Jordan poster on his wall. "It's going to be okay, baby," Teresa had told him, though the worry lines on her forehead told a different story. "How?" Darius had asked. "No college will give a scholarship to a kid with a criminal record. No team will want me. We'll figure something out," she'd insisted. But her voice lacked conviction. Darius had missed a week of school and work. His manager at the grocery store had already replaced him. His grades, already slipping from his late-night practice sessions, were now beyond saving. The basketball coach had left 3 messages, but Darius couldn't bear to call him back. The morning of his court date, Darius had stood in front of the bathroom mirror, practicing what to say to the judge. The public defender had told him to plead guilty and hope for leniency. But the word guilty felt wrong in his mouth. Was he guilty of wanting a better life? Guilty of working harder than everyone else? Guilty of believing in himself when no one else did? As Teresa ironed his only dress shirt, Darius had finally looked at the Jordan poster again. The words below the image seemed to mock him now. "No limits." "Yeah, right," Darius had muttered. There were always limits for kids from the South Side. Now, as the judge called for a recess, Darius couldn't believe what was happening. Michael Jordan, the Michael Jordan, was offering him a second chance. More than that, he was offering him a job doing what he loved. The courtroom buzzed with excitement as people filed out for the recess. Jordan's security team kept people from approaching him, but many stared and pointed. A few took quick photos despite the court rules. Darius sat frozen in his chair, unable to process everything. His mom made her way through the crowd to him, tears streaming down her face. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, hugging him tightly. "Did you hear what he's offering?" "I heard," Darius said, his voice barely audible. "But why? Why would he do this for me?" Teresa shook her head, equally bewildered. Ms. Chen looked equally shocked, but quickly regained her professional demeanor. "This is an extremely generous offer. If the judge accepts it, you'd avoid a criminal record." Jordan approached their table, his security team creating space around them. "Mrs. Wilson," he said, extending his hand to Teresa. "I'm Michael Jordan." Teresa shook his hand, seemingly at a loss for words. "Thank you," she finally managed. "Thank you for helping my son." Jordan smiled. "Your son reminds me of myself at his age. Sometimes talent needs a little help to find its way." He turned to Darius. "I saw you play last night." "What?" Darius was confused. "How?" "I went to your high school. Coach Williams let me watch the game films from this season." Jordan smiled. "You've got a good shooting form. Quick release. But your left-hand dribble needs work." Darius couldn't believe Jordan had watched him play, let alone analyzed his game. "Why are you really doing this?" Darius asked, finding his voice. "You don't even know me." Jordan looked at him seriously. "Sometimes in life, you get a chance to pay forward what someone once did for you." He glanced at his watch. "We should talk more after court. For now, let's see what the judge decides." As they waited for court to resume, Jordan spoke quietly with his lawyer. The prosecutor huddled with Mr. Jacobs, who kept glancing at Jordan with an expression of disbelief. Darius leaned toward his mom. "This can't be real. I'm going to wake up back in that cell." Teresa squeezed his hand. "It's real, baby. Sometimes blessings come from the strangest places." When Judge Martinez returned to the bench, the courtroom fell silent again. Her face gave nothing away as she adjusted her glasses and reviewed her notes. After careful consideration, she began, "I'm prepared to rule on this matter." She looked directly at Darius. "Mr. Wilson, please stand." Darius rose on shaky legs. Ms. Chen stood beside him. "Darius Wilson, you are charged with breaking and entering, a serious offense, regardless of your intentions." The judge's stern voice made Darius's heart sink. "However, I believe justice is best served when punishment fits not just the crime, but the person and the circumstances." She looked at Jordan, then back to Darius. "I'm placing you on 6 months probation. During that time, you will complete 200 hours of community service at the Westside Community Center, as Mr. Jordan has proposed. If you complete your probation and community service without incident, this case will be dismissed and sealed." Darius felt lightheaded. No criminal record, a second chance. "Mr. Jordan," the judge continued, "the court appreciates your intervention and generous proposal. Mr. Jacobs, I trust you'll work with the foundation to implement these programs as discussed?" Mr. Jacobs nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." Then court is adjourned. Judge Martinez tapped her gavel, then smiled slightly. "And Mr. Jordan, thank you for making my courtroom a bit more interesting today." As the gallery erupted in applause, Darius turned to his mother, who was openly weeping now. Beyond her, he saw Jordan watching them, a small smile on his face. "Thank you," Darius mouthed to him. Jordan simply nodded. Then he mouthed back 2 words: "No limits." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed around them. Camera flashes popped. Like lightning, microphones thrust toward Jordan's face. His security team created a protective circle, trying to guide him toward a black SUV waiting at the curb. "Mr. Jordan, why did you help this kid? Is the foundation really funding midnight basketball? Darius, how does it feel to have Michael Jordan save you from jail?" Jordan held up his hands. "I'll make a brief statement," he said, and the reporters fell quiet. The Michael Jordan Foundation believes in second chances and in the power of basketball to change lives. We're excited to partner with the Westside Community Center to create more opportunities for young people in Chicago. A reporter shouted, "But why this specific case? Why Darius Wilson?" Jordan smiled. "Sometimes you see something special in someone. I saw that in Darius." He put his arm around Darius's shoulders. "This young man reminds me of myself, except he's got a better three-point shot." Everyone laughed. Darius blushed. "Now, if you'll excuse us," Jordan continued, "we have some details to work out." The security team cleared a path to the SUV. Jordan motioned for Darius and Teresa to follow him. They slipped into the vehicle as reporters continued shouting questions. Inside the luxury SUV, Darius sat in stunned silence. The seats were soft leather. A privacy window separated them from the driver. Jordan pressed a button and the windows darkened, shielding them from the crowd outside. "I'm sorry about the reporters," Jordan said. "Fame has its downsides." "Mr. Jordan," Teresa began, her voice shaking with emotion, "I don't know how to thank you." "Please, call me Michael," he replied with a warm smile, "and no thanks necessary. But we do need to talk about next steps." He looked at Darius. "You start your community service tomorrow. Are you ready for that?" Darius nodded eagerly. "Yes, sir. Michael, I'll work harder than anyone you've ever seen." Jordan laughed. "I believe you. But first, let's go back to where this all began." Earlier that morning, before the sun had risen, Darius had stood in front of his closet, staring at the only button-up shirt he owned. It was white with tiny blue stripes, 2 sizes too big, and wrinkled from being stuffed in the back of his drawer. "Mom, do I have to wear a tie?" he had called out. Teresa had appeared in his doorway, already dressed in her nursing scrubs. She would go straight to work after the trial. Dark circles under her eyes revealed her sleepless night. "Not if you don't have one," she had answered. "But tuck in the shirt and let me iron it first." In the tiny kitchen, Teresa had set up the ironing board. The old iron sputtered and leaked water as she pressed Darius's shirt. One side of the iron had stopped heating years ago, so she had to go over everything twice. "Ms. Chen says I should plead guilty," Darius had said quietly, watching his mom work. "She says the judge might give me community service instead of jail time." Teresa had pressed her lips together tightly, focusing on the iron's movement. "We'll pray for mercy," she had finally said. "I don't feel guilty, Mom," Darius had admitted. "I know breaking in was wrong, but I did it for the right reasons." Teresa had set down the iron and looked at her son. No longer the little boy who had chased basketballs in their cramped living room, but a young man facing charges that could derail his future. "Sometimes life isn't fair, baby," she had said, softly. "Sometimes good people have to say sorry for things that shouldn't be wrong. Just say what Ms. Chen tells you to say. We'll get through this." After putting on the freshly ironed shirt, Darius had stood in the bathroom, practicing his words. "I plead guilty, Your Honor." 4 simple words that felt like rocks in his mouth. In the mirror, his reflection had looked tired, scared. He'd splashed cold water on his face and straightened his shoulders. "Whatever happens," he had told himself, "hold your head up." As they'd left the apartment, their neighbor, Mrs. Washington, had been waiting in the hallway. "I'm praying for you, child," the elderly woman had said, pressing a small cross into Darius's palm. "The Lord works in mysterious ways." The bus ride downtown had been quiet. Teresa had held Darius's hand the whole way, like she used to do when he was small. The courthouse had loomed ahead, its stone steps crowded with people. "Why are there TV cameras?" Darius had asked nervously. Teresa had shaken her head. "Must be a bigger case happening today." They'd gone through security, found courtroom 302, and met briefly with Ms. Chen, who had seemed distracted and unprepared. "Just follow my lead," the public defender had told him. "If the judge asks you questions, keep your answers short. Show remorse." Darius had nodded, though remorse wasn't what he felt. Frustration, yes. Fear, definitely, but not remorse. As they'd waited for the case to be called, Darius had noticed more people filing into the courtroom than seemed normal. Court officers whispered to each other. Someone important must be coming, he had thought. Then his case had been called, and everything had changed. Now, as the SUV pulled away from the courthouse, Darius felt like he was in a dream. Michael Jordan, the legend from his bedroom poster, sat across from him, typing something on his phone. "We're heading to the community center," Jordan explained, looking up. "I want to see the place and meet with Mr. Jacobs to discuss the program details." "Right now?" Teresa asked, looking down at her scrubs. "I have to be at work in 30 minutes. "We can drop you off," Jordan offered. "Darius will be fine with me. I'll make sure he gets home safely." Teresa hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you." She turned to Darius. "Be respectful. Listen more than you talk." It was the same advice she gave him before every important occasion. "I will, Mom," Darius promised. After dropping Teresa at the hospital where she worked, the SUV continued to the West Side Community Center. As they pulled up, Darius saw Mr. Jacobs standing outside, looking nervous. A small crowd had gathered. Word traveled fast in the neighborhood. "Ready?" Jordan asked as the driver opened the door. Darius took a deep breath. "Ready." Together, they stepped out into the bright spring morning. The crowd gasped at the sight of Michael Jordan. Mr. Jacobs moved forward, hand extended. "Mr. Jordan," the center director said, shaking Jordan's hand vigorously. "Welcome to Westside Community Center. It's an honor to have you here." Jordan smiled, politely. "Thank you for agreeing to this arrangement." Then he turned to Darius. "Why don't you show me around the place you love so much?" Darius led Jordan through the front doors of the community center. Inside, the walls were painted a faded blue, with motivational posters and community announcements taped up. The building smelled of floor cleaner and old gym shoes, a smell Darius had always loved. "This is the main lobby," Darius said, suddenly feeling shy. The place he knew so well looked different through Jordan's eyes. Smaller, shabbier. Jordan nodded, taking everything in. "Good open space. We could put some trophies here. Maybe some Bulls memorabilia to inspire the kids." They continued the tour. Darius showed Jordan the computer room with its 6 outdated machines, the small kitchen where they served free lunches in summer, and the multi-purpose room used for everything from dance classes to community meetings. Finally, they reached the gym. The basketball court was worn, with scuff marks everywhere and a crack running along one side. The backboards were yellowed with age, and one rim hung slightly crooked. But to Darius, it was sacred ground. "This is where I practice," he said softly. Jordan walked to center court, his footsteps echoing in the empty gym. He bounced on his toes, testing the floor's spring. "Needs work," he said, "but it's got good bones." He looked up at the ceiling. Lighting could be better. Mr. Jacobs, who had been following them nervously, spoke up. "We've been trying to get upgrades for years, but the budget—" "Don't worry about the budget," Jordan interrupted. "My foundation will handle it." He turned to Darius. "Show me your shot." Someone handed Darius a basketball. With Jordan watching, he suddenly felt like his arms were too long and his feet too big. But years of practice took over. He dribbled twice, set his feet, and released. The ball arced perfectly and swished through the net. Jordan nodded approvingly. "Again!" From the three-point line. Darius moved back and hit another shot, then another from a different angle. "Not bad," Jordan said. A small smile played on his lips. "But let's see if you can beat me." The crowd that had followed them into the gym gasped. Michael Jordan was challenging Darius to a shooting contest. "First to 7, Jordan proposed. 3-pointers only. Darius's heart raced. "Yes, sir," he said automatically. Jordan laughed. "Stop with the sir already. And don't be nervous, it's just basketball." But it wasn't just basketball. Not to Darius. This was his hero, the greatest player ever, standing on his home court. Jordan went first, hitting a perfect 3 from the top of the key. Darius matched him. They traded shots, moving around the arc. The small crowd cheered for both of them. At 5-5, Jordan missed. Darius made his next shot to go up 6-5. With one more basket, he would beat Michael Jordan. "Pressure's on," Jordan said, with a grin. "Let's see what you're made of." Darius took a deep breath. He thought of all the nights he'd practiced alone in this gym, shooting until his arms ached. All the times he'd pretended it was Game 7 of the NBA Finals, with the clock running down. He'd been preparing for this moment his whole life. He released the ball. It rotated perfectly and dropped through the net with a satisfying snap of the nylon. 7-5. He had beaten Michael Jordan. The crowd erupted. Someone started chanting, "Darius! Darius!" Jordan walked over and gave him a fist bump. "Nice shooting," he said, "but next time I won't go easy on you." Darius grinned, knowing Jordan had absolutely been trying his best. It was a moment he would remember forever. Later, in Mr. Jacobs's small office, Jordan laid out his plans for the midnight basketball program. His foundation would fund extended hours 3 nights a week initially, with the possibility of expanding to 5 nights if successful. They would hire additional security and staff, upgrade the facilities, and provide transportation for kids who lived far away. "And Darius will be my assistant," Jordan explained. "He'll work here to fulfill his community service hours, but I want him trained as a youth coach. That means getting certified, learning first aid, the whole package." Mr. Jacobs looked overwhelmed. "This is very generous, Mr. Jordan. I don't know what to say." "Say you'll make it work," Jordan replied simply. "These kids need this place." Darius proved that. As they continued discussing details, Darius's mind wandered back to that morning in court, still trying to process everything that had happened. When Darius had entered courtroom 302 earlier that day, he'd been prepared for the worst. His mom had squeezed his hand one last time before he'd walked to the front, with Ms. Chen. Judge Martinez had called his case in a matter-of-fact voice that revealed nothing about what was to come. The courtroom had been oddly full, but Darius had been too nervous to wonder why. Then the doors had opened, and Michael Jordan had walked in. The entire courtroom had fallen silent. No coughing, no shuffling papers, no whispered conversations. Complete silence, like someone had pressed a mute button on the world. Jordan had walked down the aisle in his perfectly tailored gray suit, his presence filling the room. He moved, with the confident grace of someone used to being watched, his tall frame commanding attention without effort. Judge Martinez had frozen mid-sentence, her gavel suspended in air. The prosecutor had dropped his pen. Ms. Chen had gasped audibly. And Darius. Darius had felt the world tilt sideways. His knees had gone weak. The face from his bedroom poster, the legend whose moves he had studied endlessly, the greatest basketball player who ever lived, was walking toward him. Jordan had nodded at Darius with a small smile, as if to say, "Don't worry, I've got this." The judge had recovered her composure first. "Mr. Jordan," she'd said, her voice higher than usual, "what brings you to my courtroom today?" Jordan's deep voice had filled the room. "I'd like to speak on behalf of the defendant, Your Honor, if that's allowed." The prosecutor had stammered, "No objection, Your Honor," before the judge could even ask. Jordan had then explained his connection to the case, his belief in Darius, and his proposal for the community center. The courtroom had hung on his every word. When he'd mentioned sneaking into gyms himself as a young player, there had been knowing smiles. Darius had stood there, trying to process what was happening. Was Michael Jordan really saying these things about him? Did he really believe Darius had special talent? It had felt like a dream, the kind you hope never ends. "Darius?" Jordan's voice snapped him back to the present. They were still in Mr. Jacobs's office. "Sorry," Darius said quickly. "What did you ask?" "I asked if you're ready to start tomorrow morning." 8 o'clock sharp, Darius nodded eagerly. "Yes, yes, I'm ready." "Good." Jordan stood up, signaling the end of the meeting. "Mr. Jacobs, my team will be in touch with more details. I expect the renovations can start next week." As they walked back through the center, people stopped to stare and take pictures. Jordan handled it with practiced ease, smiling and nodding but keeping moving. Outside, the black SUV waited. Before getting in, Jordan turned to Darius. "Remember what I said in court about seeing something special in you?" he asked quietly. "Yes," Darius replied. "I meant it. But talent only gets you so far. The rest is work. I'll see you tomorrow, Coach Wilson." Coach Wilson. The words echoed in Darius's head as he watched the SUV drive away. For the first time in weeks, he felt something he'd almost forgotten: hope. Darius walked home from the community center with his mind racing. People stopped him on the street, asking about Jordan. News traveled fast in the neighborhood. By tomorrow, everyone would know the story. "Hey, basketball star," called Mr. Patel from his convenience store. Just last week, the same man had looked at him with disappointment after the arrest. Now, his face showed nothing but pride. "Come in, come in. Tell me everything." Darius spent 20 minutes in the store, recounting the day's events. Mr. Patel listened with wide eyes, occasionally shaking his head in disbelief. "Michael Jordan himself," Mr. Patel kept saying, "in our neighborhood, for you." When Darius finally reached home, he found Mrs. Washington and 3 other neighbors sitting with his mom in their tiny living room. Teresa jumped up when he entered. "There he is!" she exclaimed, pulling him into a hug. "My son! The coach!" The neighbors clapped. Mrs. Washington wiped tears from her eyes. "Didn't I tell you the Lord works in mysterious ways?" she said. That night, after everyone had left, Darius lay in bed staring at his Jordan poster. The face that had watched over him for years seemed different now, less distant, more real. His phone buzzed with a text from a number he didn't recognize. 8 a.m. sharp. Don't be late. MJ Darius couldn't sleep. He kept replaying the day in his head, especially the moment in court when Jordan had spoken about his own past. After Judge Martinez had given Jordan permission to speak, the basketball legend had moved to the center of the courtroom. His deep voice had filled the room as he began his statement. "Your Honor, I grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina, in a family that believed in hard work and discipline. My father worked in a factory, and my mother was a bank teller. They taught me that nothing worthwhile comes easy." Jordan had paused, looking around the courtroom. Everyone was completely still, hanging on his every word. "When I was a sophomore in high school, I tried out for the varsity basketball team. I was 5'10" at the time, shorter than most of the other players. My coach, Clifton Herring, cut me from the team." Murmurs had rippled through the courtroom. Everyone knew Jordan as the greatest ever. It was hard to imagine him being cut from any team. "That day was one of the most disappointing of my life," Jordan had continued. "I went home, closed myself in my room, and cried. Then I made a decision that would shape the rest of my life. I would practice harder than anyone else. I would prove Coach Herring wrong." Jordan had moved closer to the EU judge's bench, his voice growing more intense. "I practiced morning, evening, and every chance I got. There was just one problem. Gym time was limited. The school locked the doors at 7:20 p.m., but I needed more hours if I was going to improve enough." The courtroom had grown even quieter. If that was possible, everyone sensed where the story was going. "So I found ways to get into the gym after hours. Sometimes the janitor would leave a window unlocked for me. Sometimes friends would prop a door. And yes, Your Honor, sometimes I broke in." Judge Martinez's eyebrows had risen slightly, but she'd remained silent. "I'm not proud of breaking rules," Jordan had admitted, "but I am proud of my determination. That extra practice time made all the difference. The next year, I made varsity. By senior year, I earned a scholarship to North Carolina. The rest, as they say, is history." He'd turned to look at Darius then. "When I heard about Darius Wilson breaking into the community center to practice basketball, I recognized that same hunger, that same drive, that same refusal to let circumstances dictate his future." Jordan had then explained how he'd visited the high school the previous evening and watched Darius's game films with Coach Williams. I saw a young man with raw talent who needs guidance and opportunity. Not a criminal record. I saw someone who loves the game so much that he was willing to risk everything just to practice. That's rare. That's special, he'd told the court, about meeting Darius briefly before the hearing and challenging him to a three-point contest. "He beat me 7-5, Jordan had said with a smile, prompting laughter throughout the courtroom. "Your Honor, I don't condone breaking and entering, but I understand the desperation that drives a young athlete when doors keep closing. Darius wasn't stealing. He wasn't vandalizing. He was working on his future, the only way he knew how." Jordan had looked directly at the judge. "I'm asking you to give him the chance I was given. Let him turn this mistake into something positive for himself and his community." The next morning, Darius arrived at the community center at 7:30 a.m. The doors were still locked, but he could see lights on inside. He paced nervously, checking his watch every few minutes. At exactly 8 a.m., a sleek black car pulled up. Jordan stepped out wearing basketball shorts, a t-shirt, and, of course, Air Jordans. "Good morning, Coach Wilson," he said, extending his hand. "Good morning," Darius replied, shaking Jordan's hand firmly. "Ready to work?" Jordan asked. "Yes, sir. Yes," Jordan laughed. "The sir habit is hard to break, I know. Come on, let's go inside." Mr. Jacobs was waiting for them, holding a clipboard and looking anxious. "Mr. Jordan, I've prepared a list of potential improvements for the center, as you requested." Jordan took the list and scanned it quickly. "This is a good start. My foundation team will be here tomorrow to discuss details." He handed the list back. "But today is about basketball. Darius and I need to see what we're working with." They walked to the gym, where Jordan had a surprise waiting. Lined up on the bleachers were 20 teenagers from the neighborhood, most of whom Darius recognized. "These will be your first students," Jordan explained. "I asked Mr. Jacobs to round up some regular center users. Your job is to run them through basic drills, see what skill levels we're dealing with." Darius felt a wave of panic. "Right now? But I don't have a plan, or—" "Basketball is basketball," Jordan said simply. "You know the game. Share what you know." The teens watched eagerly, whispering among themselves. Some pointed at Jordan, taking discreet photos with their phones. Darius took a deep breath. He walked to center court, suddenly aware that Michael Jordan was watching his every move. "All right, everyone on the baseline," he called out, surprised by the confidence in his voice. "Let's start with some layup drills." The teens scrambled to the baseline. As Darius demonstrated the proper form for a layup, he caught Jordan nodding approvingly from the sideline. For the next hour, Darius ran. The group threw basic drills, dribbling, passing, shooting. When someone struggled, he offered corrections. When someone did well, he gave praise. It felt natural, like he'd been coaching his whole life. Jordan watched silently, occasionally making notes on his phone. Finally, he stepped onto the court. "Listen up," he called, and instantly everyone froze. What Coach Wilson has shown you today is just the beginning. Starting next week, we'll be launching a new program here. Late hours for those who want to work on their game, professional coaching, new equipment. The teens looked at each other in excitement. But, Jordan continued, his voice serious, "This isn't just about basketball. It's about discipline, respect, community. If you want to be part of this program, you'll maintain good grades. You'll help keep this place clean. You'll lift each other up, not tear each other down. Understood?" "Yes, sir," they responded in unison. Jordan smiled. "Good. Now who wants to see if they can beat Coach Wilson in a shooting contest? He beat me yesterday, so good luck. Hands shot up immediately. Everyone wanted to challenge the new coach who had supposedly beaten Michael. Jordan. Jamal, you're up first, Jordan said, pointing to a tall, lanky boy in the back. Jamal stepped forward, trying to look confident but clearly nervous. Jordan explained the rules, same as yesterday. First to 7 wins, 3-pointers only. Matif. Darius and Jamal began their contest. Jordan moved to the side of the gym where Mr. Jacobs stood watching. The community center director seemed uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot, avoiding eye contact. Something on your mind, Mr. Jacobs? Jordan asked quietly. Mr. Jacobs hesitated. It's just, this is all happening so fast. Yesterday, I was pressing charges against that young man. He nodded toward Darius, who had just hit his 3rd straight shot. Today, he's coaching here with Michael Jordan's endorsement. Jordan studied the older man's face. You're having second thoughts. About pressing charges? I'm having second thoughts about many things, Mr. Jacobs admitted. I've run this center for 15 years. I know all these kids. I knew Darius was a good kid when I pressed charges. Then why did you do it? Jordan asked, his voice neutral, but his eyes intense. Mr. Jacobs sighed. You have to understand, Mr. Jordan, this center operates on the thinnest of margins. One broken window, one stolen piece of equipment, it means something else we can't fix or replace. I can't afford to let rules slide, even for good kids with good intentions. The cheers from the court momentarily drew their attention. Darius had won his contest against Jamal, 7-5. Jordan nodded approvingly before turning back to Mr. Jacobs. I understand tight budgets, Jordan said, but I also understand the difference between enforcing rules and forgetting why those rules exist in the first place. Mr. Jacobs looked down. Maybe I lost sight of that. Howard Jacobs had not always been the strict rule enforcer the neighborhood kids now knew. 20 years ago, fresh out of college with a degree in social work, he had arrived at the West Side Community Center full of idealism and energy. Back then, his office had been covered with inspirational posters. He'd known every kid's name, their families, their dreams. But years of budget cuts had worn him down. Each year, the city provided less funding. Each year, he had to cut programs, reduce hours, let staff go. The center that had once been a vibrant hub of activity now struggled to keep its doors open. The morning after Darius's arrest, Mr. Jacobs had arrived early to check for any damage. He'd found none. Instead, he'd discovered the neat stack of paper towels by the gym door, Darius's way of cleaning up after himself. He'd also found a notebook on one of the bleachers, filled with basketball drills and personal goals in Darius's handwriting. One page had particularly caught his attention. Goals for this year. 1. Practice 4 hours every day. 2. Improve left-hand dribbling. 3. Shoot 500 free throws daily. 4. Get basketball scholarship to college. 5. Make mom proud, Mr. Jacobs had felt a twinge of guilt. He remembered having similar lists. At Darius's age, similar dreams. When had he stopped seeing these kids as individuals with hopes and started seeing them as potential problems? But he'd already pressed charges. The center's board had already commended his strong stance on security. Backing down now would make him look weak, indecisive. So he'd pushed away his doubts and focused on filling out incident reports and security upgrade requests. Now, watching Darius coach these teens with natural authority and genuine care, Mr. Jacobs felt his guilt return stronger than ever. It's not too late to make things right, Jordan said, seeming to read his thoughts. The charges are already dropped. Mr. Jacobs pointed out. "I'm not talking about legal charges," Jordan replied. "I'm talking about how you see these kids, how you run this center." Before Mr. Jacobs could respond, the gym doors opened and several men in suits entered. Jordan's foundation team had arrived earlier than expected. Jordan excused himself to speak with them, leaving Mr. Jacobs alone with his thoughts. Across the gym, Darius was showing a younger boy how to properly position his shooting elbow. The patient way he demonstrated, the encouraging words he used, it reminded Mr. Jacobs of himself when he'd first started at the center. When had he lost that passion? When had rules become more important than people? Later that afternoon, after the impromptu basketball clinic had ended and the kids had gone home, Mr. Jacobs found Darius cleaning the gym floor. "You don't have to do that," Mr. Jacobs said. "We have janitors." "I know," Darius replied, "but my mom always says to leave a place better than you found it." Mr. Jacobs hesitated, then picked up another mop. They worked in silence for a few minutes, the only sound the swish of mops across the floor. "I owe you an apology," Mr. Jacobs finally said. "I shouldn't have pressed charges." Darius stopped mopping. "Why did you?" "I thought I was doing my job," Mr. Jacobs said. "Protecting the center. Setting an example." He shook his head. "I forgot that this place isn't about the building. It's about the people inside it." "I broke the rules," Darius acknowledged. "I should have just asked you for more court time." "Would I have given it to you?" Mr. Jacobs asked honestly. Darius didn't answer, which was answer enough. "This center used to be different," Mr. Jacobs said quietly. "We had programs running until 10 p.m. Summer leagues, college recruiting events." He leaned on his mop. "Every budget cut took something away, until it felt like we were just barely keeping the lights on." "Is that going to change now?" Darius asked. "With Jordan's foundation helping?" "It already has," Mr. Jacobs said, looking around the gym with new eyes. "But the money isn't the biggest change." He looked directly at Darius. "You reminded me why I took this job in the first place. These past few years, I've been managing a building. I need to get back to building a community." The next day, Jordan's foundation team arrived in force. Architects measured the gym for renovations. Financial officers reviewed budgets with Mr. Jacobs. Marketing specialists discussed new programs. The center buzzed with activity and possibility. In his office, Mr. Jacobs took down the framed commendations and rule lists that had accumulated over the years. From his bottom drawer, he pulled out an old photo, himself at 22, surrounded by smiling kids with basketballs. He placed it prominently on his desk. When Darius stopped by to check the day's schedule, Mr. Jacobs handed him a small package. "What's this?" Darius asked. "Keys to the center," Mr. Jacobs said. "Front door, gym, equipment room. Your staff now. You don't have to hide in supply closets anymore." Darius stared at the keys in his palm. "Thank you," he said softly. "No," Mr. Jacobs replied. "Thank you for reminding me what this place is supposed to be." The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of activity. The community center remained open during the day for regular programs, but after hours, construction crews worked through the night. The gym floor was sanded and refinished. New backboards and rims were installed. The lighting system was completely replaced with bright, energy-efficient fixtures that eliminated all shadows. Darius arrived early each morning and stayed late each evening. He helped move equipment, organize the storage rooms, and continued working with neighborhood kids whenever the gym was available. His community service hours were adding up quickly, but he didn't care about that anymore. This wasn't punishment, it was opportunity. Jordan visited every few days, sometimes bringing former Bulls players with him. Scottie Pippen ran a defensive. Clinic one afternoon. Another day, Dennis Rodman showed up to teach rebounding techniques. Word spread rapidly, and more kids from across the city started showing up. "We're going to need a registration system," Mr. Jacobs told Darius one afternoon. "Can't have too many kids at once when we launch the official program." The grand opening of the Midnight Basketball program was scheduled for June 1st, just 3 weeks after Darius's court date. Flyers appeared around the neighborhood. Local news stations ran short segments about the famous partnership between Michael Jordan and the West Side Community Center. The day before the launch, Jordan called a meeting with Darius, Mr. Jacobs, and the foundation team. They gathered in the newly renovated multi-purpose room, which now featured comfortable chairs, a large screen for video analysis, and walls covered with basketball photos and inspirational quotes. "Tomorrow's the big day," Jordan began. "I want to make sure we're all on the same page about expectations." He outlined the program schedule: 3 nights a week, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. The center would remain open until midnight. Kids aged 12 to 18 would have the early shift from 7 to 9:30 p.m. Young adults 19-25 would have the late shift from 9:30 to midnight. All participants would be required to maintain passing grades in school or, if they had graduated, either hold a job or be enrolled in further education. "This isn't just about basketball," Jordan emphasized. "It's about creating a pathway to success. Every participant will have access to tutoring, job placement services, and college application assistance." Mr. Jacobs nodded approvingly. "That's the kind of comprehensive program I've always wanted to run, but never had the resources for." Jordan turned to Darius. "Any concerns before we launch?" Darius had been taking notes throughout the meeting. "Just one," he said. "What about transportation? Some kids live far from here, and public transit isn't always safe late at night." Jordan smiled. "Good question. That shows you're thinking like a program director." One of the foundation team members spoke up. "We've arranged for 2 shuttle vans that will run designated routes after each session. We've mapped the neighborhoods where most participants live and created safe drop-off points." Darius nodded, impressed by the thoroughness of the planning. "Any other questions?" Jordan asked. When no one spoke up, he continued, "Then I have a proposal." He looked directly at Darius. "Your community service requirement is 200 hours, correct?" "Yes," Darius confirmed. "I've completed about 80 hours so far. At the rate you're going, you'll finish your hours in another month or so," Jordan said. "But I'm hoping you'll stay on longer than that." Darius sat up straighter. "Of course. I love being here." "Good," Jordan said. "Because I'd like to offer you a permanent position as assistant program director once your community service is complete. Paid position, part-time during school year, full-time in summer." Darius stared at Jordan, unable to find words. A real job, a title, a future. The salary would be competitive, Jordan continued, seemingly unaware of Darius's shock. "And we'd work around your college schedule." "College?" Darius finally managed to say. Jordan nodded. "Several college coaches will be visiting throughout the summer. I've mentioned you to a few of them already. With your skills and the leadership you're showing here, I think you've got a good shot at a scholarship." Mr. Jacobs reached over and patted Darius's shoulder. "You deserve it, son." Darius looked down at his hands, trying to hide the tears that had suddenly formed in his eyes. 2 months ago, he'd been facing criminal charges, his future in jeopardy. Now he was being offered a job, a pathway to college, and the respect of his community, all because he'd refused to give up on his dream. "I don't know what to say," he finally managed. "Say yes," Jordan replied simply. "Yes," Darius said immediately. "Yes, to all of it." After the meeting, Darius called his mom at work to share the news. Teresa cried openly, not caring that her co-workers could hear. "I'm so proud of you, baby," she said. So proud. That evening, Darius stood alone in the empty gym, bouncing a basketball slowly. The new floor gleamed under the bright lights. The fresh nets on the rims hung perfectly straight. Everything smelled of new paint and possibility. He dribbled to the three-point line, the same spot where he'd beaten Jordan in their shooting contest. So much had changed since that day. He had changed. Darius took the shot, watching the perfect arc of the ball as it swished through the net. The sound echoed in the empty gym. From behind him, a voice said, "Nice form." Darius turned to find Jordan standing in the doorway, hands in the pockets of his expensive suit. "Just getting in some practice before tomorrow," Darius explained. Jordan walked onto the court. "Nervous about the launch?" "A little," Darius admitted. "What if nobody comes? Or what if too many people come and we can't handle it? What if—" "Stop," Jordan interrupted gently. "First rule of leadership. Focus on what you can control, not what you can't." Darius nodded, taking a deep breath. "When I played big games," Jordan continued, "I didn't worry about the crowd or the cameras or what critics might say afterward. I focused on my preparation, my teammates, my game plan. The rest took care of itself." He picked up the basketball and spun it on his finger. A casual display of the control that had made him legendary. "Tomorrow will be what it will be," Jordan said, passing the ball back to Darius. "All that matters is that you're ready." "I'm ready," Darius said with confidence. Jordan smiled. "I know you are. That's why I chose you." As Jordan turned to leave, Darius called after him, "Can I ask you something?" Jordan paused. "Of course. Why did you really help me?" "The truth." Jordan was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "Let's just say I'm paying forward a debt from long ago," he finally answered. "Someday, you'll do the same for someone else." Before Darius could ask what he meant, Jordan was gone, leaving. Darius alone with his thoughts and a gym full of possibilities. The grand opening of the midnight basketball program exceeded everyone's expectations. By 6:30 p.m., a line of kids and parents stretched around the block. News vans parked outside, reporters setting up cameras to capture the event. Police officers, who had volunteered their time, helped direct traffic and maintain order. Inside, Darius checked everything one last time. The registration tables were set up in the lobby, staffed by volunteers from Jordan's foundation. Water coolers and healthy snacks were arranged along the walls. The newly installed scoreboard gleamed above the court. "We're ready," Mr. Jacobs announced, looking more energized than Darius had ever seen him. At exactly 7 p.m., they opened the doors. Kids poured in, eyes wide with excitement. Some had new basketball shoes, clearly purchased just for this occasion. Others wore whatever they had, but all shared the same eager expression. Jordan arrived fashionably late, causing a near stampede as kids and parents rushed to see him. He handled the attention gracefully, signing autographs and posing for photos, but eventually made his way to the center of the court. "Welcome to the first night of the Midnight Basketball program," he announced, his voice booming through the new sound system. "Tonight marks the beginning of something special for this community." He introduced the staff, saving Darius for last. "And this is Coach Wilson, who will be running the day-to-day operations. Some of you may know his story, some may not. But what you should know is that his dedication to basketball and to bettering himself is why we're all here tonight." Darius waved awkwardly as everyone applauded. Being in the spotlight still felt strange. The evening proceeded smoothly. The younger kids had their session first, running drills and playing short games under the guidance of Darius and the other coaches. At 9:30, they switched to the older group. By midnight, when the last participant left, Darius was exhausted but exhilarated. "Good work tonight," Jordan told him before leaving. "This is just the beginning." Over the next few weeks, the MIC program settled into a rhythm. Attendance remained high. Kids who had previously been getting into trouble now had a safe place to spend their evenings. Parents reported improved behavior at home. Even local police noted a decrease in juvenile incidents on program nights. 1 month after the launch, Darius received an unexpected phone call. "This is Judge Martinez's office," said a formal voice. "The judge would like to meet with you tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. regarding your probation status." Darius felt a knot form in his stomach. Had he done something wrong? Was there a problem with his community service? The next morning, dressed in his best clothes, Darius arrived at the courthouse. He was directed not to a courtroom, but to Judge Martinez's private chambers. The judge sat behind a large desk, reading glasses perched on her nose as she reviewed a file. "Mr. Wilson," she said, looking up. "Please, have a seat." Darius sat nervously in the chair across from her. "I've been receiving regular reports about your community service," Judge Martinez began. "Mr. Jacobs has submitted weekly updates, all of them extremely positive. Your probation officer also speaks highly of you." "Thank you, Your Honor," Darius said, relaxing slightly. "I've also been reading about the new basketball program in the news," she continued. "It seems to be quite successful." "Yes, ma'am. We're at full capacity every night." Judge Martinez removed her glasses. "I'll be honest, Mr. Wilson. When Michael Jordan walked into my courtroom that day, I thought I was witnessing some sort of publicity stunt." She smiled slightly. "I've been a judge for 15 years. I'm naturally skeptical." Darius nodded, unsure how to respond. "But it appears I was wrong," she continued. "This program is making a real difference. And from what I understand, you're a big part of that success." "I'm just trying to help kids like me," Darius said honestly. The judge opened a drawer and pulled out a document. "This is an order terminating your probation early, in recognition of your exemplary community service and positive contributions to the community." Darius stared at the paper in shock. "But I've only completed about half my hours." "The quality of your service outweighs the quantity," Judge Martinez explained. "You've gone far beyond what was required of you. This case was never about punishing you. It was about redirecting your energy in a positive way. You've more than accomplished that goal." She slid the document across the desk. "This also includes an order to seal your record. As far as the law is concerned, this incident never happened." Darius carefully picked up the paper, reading the official language that essentially gave him a clean slate. "I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," Judge Martinez replied. "Just keep doing what you're doing." She paused, then added, "My grandson is 12. He's been attending your program on Tuesday nights. He can't stop talking about Coach Wilson and how cool the center is." Darius smiled. "What's his name? I'll look for him next time." "Marcus," she said. "Skinny kid, glasses, takes about 50 shots before he makes one." "I know Marcus," Darius said, surprised. "He's been improving a lot. Last week he made 3 baskets in a row." Judge Martinez's professional demeanor softened. "He practiced all weekend in our driveway after that. You made quite an impression on him." She stood, extending her hand. "Thank you, Mr. Wilson." As they shook hands, Darius felt the weight of the past months lifting from his shoulders. Not just because his record was now clean, but because he understood that his mistake had somehow led to something good, something that was helping kids like Marcus find their own path. When Darius shared the news with his mom that evening, she hugged him tightly. "See," she said, "sometimes the hardest roads lead to the best places." The next person Darius called was Jordan, who was out of town at a charity event. "I'm not surprised," Jordan said when Darius told him about the judge's decision. "You've earned it." "It feels strange," Darius admitted. 3 months ago, I was facing charges. Now I've got a clean record, a job offer, and college scouts coming to see me play next week. "Life can change quickly," Jordan said. "Sometimes all it takes is one person believing in you." "Like you believed in me," Darius said. There was a pause. On the line. "There's something I need to tell you," Jordan said finally. "Something I've been waiting for the right time to share. When I get back to Chicago next week, let's meet. There's someone I want you to meet too." "Who?" Darius asked, curious. "An old friend," Jordan replied. "Someone who once did for me what I've done for you." Darius was intrigued by Jordan's mysterious comment, but he didn't have much time to dwell on it. The midnight basketball program was growing by the day. They'd had to create a waiting list and were considering adding a third night each week. The following Tuesday, Darius paid special attention to Marcus, Judge Martinez's grandson. The boy was indeed skinny, with thick glasses that kept sliding down his nose when he played. But there was determination in his eyes that reminded Darius of himself. "Hey, Marcus," Darius called during a water break. "San, trite. Want to work on your jump shot for a few minutes?" The boy's face lit up. "Yes, Coach Wilson!" Darius spent 15 minutes showing Marcus how to position his feet and follow through with his shot. By the end of their mini-session, Marcus was hitting about 1 shot in 3, a huge improvement from when he'd started. "My grandma's a judge," Marcus said suddenly as they were picking up the basketballs. "Is that right?" Darius replied, pretending not to know. "Yeah. She says you're a good example of how people can change for the better." Marcus pushed his glasses up his nose. "She says everyone deserves a second chance if they work hard enough." Darius smiled. "Your grandma sounds pretty smart." "She is," Marcus agreed. "She also said she'd come watch me play sometime, but I told her not until I get better." He looked up at Darius earnestly. "I don't want to embarrass myself." "You won't," Darius assured him. "By the time she comes, you'll be knocking down shots like a pro." That night, after all the kids had gone home, Darius sat in his small office, formerly a storage closet that Mr. Jacobs had converted for him. On the wall hung his framed probation termination papers, a reminder of how far he'd come. His calendar was marked with upcoming college scout visits. 3 schools had already expressed interest in him, not as a star player, but as a solid backup with leadership potential. A scholarship was looking increasingly likely. His phone buzzed with a text from Jordan. "Back in town. Meet me at the United Center tomorrow. 10 a.m. Entrance C." The next morning, Darius arrived at the massive arena where the Chicago Bulls played their home games. He'd never been inside before. Tickets were far too expensive for his family. Security directed him to a private elevator that took him to the executive level. When the doors opened, Jordan was waiting. "Right on time," he said approvingly. "Come on, there's someone waiting to meet you." They walked down a hallway lined with photos of Bulls legends. Jordan pointed out a few faces, sharing quick stories about former teammates. Finally, they reached a conference room with a view of the empty arena below. Seated at the table was an elderly man with white hair and dark skin weathered by years in the sun. He stood slowly when they entered, a wide smile spreading across his face. "Darius Wilson," Jordan said. "I'd like you to meet Wilson Thomas." Darius shook the man's hand, confused by the similarity in their names. "Nice to meet you, sir." "The pleasure is mine," Mr. Thomas replied, his voice strong despite his age. "I've heard a lot about you." Wilson Thomas was the head janitor at Laney High School in Wilmington, North Carolina, when I was a student there, Jordan explained. "He's the reason I'm here today." They sat around the table, and Jordan continued. "Remember when I told the court about being cut from the varsity team as a sophomore? About how I used to practice after hours?" Darius nodded. "What I didn't say is that I got caught, just like you." Jordan's eyes were fixed on a distant memory. "Principal found me shooting baskets at 1 a.m. when the school was supposed to be locked. He was furious, threatened to suspend me, maybe press charges for breaking and entering." Mr. Thomas chuckled. "That principal was always too strict for his own good." "Wilson here intervened," Jordan continued. "Told the principal he'd given me permission to use the gym, even though he hadn't. He risked his job for a kid he barely knew." "I knew enough," Mr. Thomas said. "I'd seen you practicing, staying later than anyone else. I recognized that hunger." He looked at Darius. "Same hunger this young man has, from what I hear." "After that," Jordan said, "Wilson gave me my own key to the gym. Said I could practice whenever I wanted, as long as I cleaned up after myself and locked up properly." "And did you?" Darius asked. Jordan laughed. "Every time. I was so grateful for that chance, I would have mopped the whole school if he'd asked." Mr. Thomas reached into his pocket and pulled out an old, worn key. "I kept this all these years. It's the duplicate I made for Michael." Jordan looked at the key with obvious emotion. "That key changed my life. Without those extra practice hours, I might never have made varsity the next year, might never have earned that scholarship to North Carolina." "When Michael called me about your situation," Mr. Thomas said to Darius, "it felt like history repeating itself. Another young man with that same fire, caught in a similar situation." Darius was trying to process everything. "So you came all the way from North Carolina just to meet me?" "Partly," Mr. Thomas admitted, "but also to see this old troublemaker." He nudged Jordan playfully. "And to see what you've built together. This midnight basketball program sounds like exactly what communities need." "It's making a difference," Darius said proudly. "We've got kids who are heading down bad paths now, focusing on basketball and school." "That's the power of second chances," Mr. Thomas said, "and of having someone believe in you." They spent the next hour sharing stories. Mr. Thomas told Darius about young Michael's work ethic, how he'd practice until his hands blistered, how he'd set up cones in the dark gym to run drills alone. Jordan shared stories about college scouts and the pressure of expectations. Darius talked about the kids at the center, especially Marcus and his improving jump shot. As they were finishing, Mr. Thomas pulled out an old photograph from his wallet. It showed a skinny teenage Michael Jordan standing next to a much younger Mr. Thomas. Between them was a basketball, and in Mr. Thomas's hand was a key, clearly being passed to Jordan. "I've carried this photo for nearly 40 years," Mr. Thomas said. "A reminder that small acts of kindness can change lives in ways we never imagine." Jordan stood, signaling the end of their meeting. "Darius, the foundation is expanding the program to 3 more community centers across Chicago. I'd like you to help train the new coaches. Share what you've learned." "Me?" Darius asked, surprised. "But I've only been doing this a few months." "Sometimes," Mr. Thomas said wisely, "it's not about how long you've been doing something, but how well you understand its importance." As they parted ways, Mr. Thomas hugged Darius tightly. "Remember," he whispered, "the greatest gift you can give is to pass on what you've received. Someday, you'll be the one giving someone else a second chance." Darius couldn't sleep that night. Meeting Wilson Thomas had affected him deeply. The connection between their names seemed like more than coincidence, almost like his life had been on this path all along. The next morning, he shared the story with his mom over breakfast. "Wilson Thomas," Teresa repeated. Her coffee cup paused, halfway to her lips. "Why does that name sound familiar?" Darius shrugged. "Jordan said he was the janitor at his high school in North Carolina." Teresa's eyes suddenly widened. "Wait a minute." She hurried to her bedroom and returned with a small photo album, its cover worn from years of handling. She flipped through the pages until she found what she was looking for. "There," she said, pointing to an old photograph. "That's your grandfather." Darius leaned closer. The photo showed a younger version of the man he'd met yesterday, standing next to a woman Darius didn't recognize. "That's my father?" Darius asked in disbelief. He'd never met his grandfather, who had died before he was born. Teresa rarely spoke about her father. "Yes," Teresa said softly. "Wilson Thomas. He was a school janitor in North Carolina before moving to Chicago. I lost touch with him after your father left us." She looked at Darius with tears in her eyes. "I had no idea he knew Michael Jordan." "Mom," Darius said slowly, "I don't think this is a coincidence. The way Jordan took interest in my case, he must have recognized my last name." Teresa covered her mouth with her hand. "All these years," she whispered. "All these years, and I never knew?" That evening at the community center, Darius found Jordan supervising the installation of new bleachers in the gym. "Why didn't you tell me?" Darius asked without preamble. Jordan turned, his expression calm. "Tell you what? That Wilson Thomas is my grandfather." Jordan nodded slowly. "I wondered if you knew. Your mother never mentioned him?" She recognized him from the photo, but she lost touch with him years ago. She had no idea about his connection to you. Jordan sighed. "I didn't know either. Not at first. When I read about your case in that newspaper article, the name Wilson caught my attention, but I thought it was just a coincidence. Then I learned your mother's maiden name was Thomas, and things started to fit together. So you helped me because of who my grandfather was?" Darius felt a twinge of disappointment. "No," Jordan said firmly. "I helped you because of who you are. The connection to Wilson just made me pay attention to your story in the first place. Everything after that, the decision to come to court, to start this program, that was about you, Darius, about the potential I saw in you." Darius wasn't entirely convinced. "Still, you should have told me sooner." "You're right," Jordan admitted, "but I wanted to be sure, and I wanted Wilson to be the one to tell you. He's been looking for you and your mother for years." "What?" This was another surprise. "After your father left, your mother changed her phone number, moved apartments. Wilson tried to find you both, but Chicago's a big city. Eventually, he returned to North Carolina." Darius felt a mix of emotions, confusion, sadness, but also a strange sense of belonging. His family history was more complex than he'd realized. "He wants to meet your mother," Jordan continued. "He's staying at the Peninsula Hotel until Friday." 3 days later, Teresa sat across from her father in the hotel restaurant, Darius beside her. 40 years of separation disappeared as Wilson Thomas held his daughter's hands, tears streaming down his weathered cheeks. "I never stopped looking for "You, Teresa," he said, "never stopped loving you." "I thought you'd given up on us," she admitted. "After James left, I felt so ashamed. I didn't want anyone to see me fail." "You didn't fail," Wilson insisted. "Look at this fine young man you've raised. You did that on your own. I'm so proud of you." As grandfather and daughter reconnected, Darius watched in amazement. His family, broken for so long, was healing before his eyes. Wilson insisted on moving to Chicago permanently. "I'm retired now," he explained. "Nothing keeping me in North Carolina. And I've got 40 years of grandfathering to catch up on." By July, the midnight basketball program had expanded to 3 nights a week at the West Side Community Center. Construction had begun at 3 additional centers across the city. Darius split his time between coaching and helping train new staff. One evening, as Darius was demonstrating defensive drills to a group of teenagers, he noticed a familiar face watching from the sidelines. Judge Martinez stood next to her grandson, Marcus, both of them smiling. During a water break, Darius went over to greet them. "Your Honor," he said respectfully. "Nice to see you here." "Marcus insisted I come see his improved jump shot," the judge explained. "And I wanted to see this program in action for myself." Marcus tugged at his grandmother's sleeve. "Can I go practice now? Coach Wilson showed me a new drill last time." As he went, Marcus ran off to join his friends. Judge Martinez turned to Darius. "This place has changed so much. It's not just the new equipment or fresh paint. There's an energy here now, a sense of purpose." "That's the kids," Darius said. "They just needed a chance to shine. And someone who believes in them," the judge added. "Like Jordan believed in you." Darius watched Marcus successfully complete the dribbling drill he'd taught him. "And like my grandfather believed in Jordan," he said quietly. Judge Martinez looked surprised. "I didn't know that part of the story." Darius briefly explained the connection between his grandfather and Jordan. "It's like a circle," he concluded. "Everyone needs someone to give them a chance." "The cycle of mentorship," Judge Martinez nodded. "That's how communities heal." As I buoyed, summer progressed. College scouts became a regular presence at the center. 3 of the older players received scholarship offers. Darius himself had narrowed his choices down to 2 schools that would allow him to play basketball while studying education. He'd decided to become a teacher and coach. His grandfather attended every event at the center, often sharing stories about young Michael Jordan with wide-eyed kids who could hardly believe the old man had known the legend when he was their age. One night, after everyone had gone home, Darius found himself alone in the gym with his grandfather. Wilson Thomas picked up a basketball and, despite his age, hit a perfect free throw. "Still got it," he said with a wink. "Grandpa," Darius asked, "did you know this would happen? When you gave Jordan that key all those years ago, did you know it would lead to this?" Wilson shook his head. "No one can see that far ahead. I just knew a dedicated young man when I saw one. Same as Jordan knew when he saw you." He passed the ball to Darius. "That's all any of us can do. Recognize the spark in others and help it grow." Darius caught the ball and spun it on his finger, a trick Jordan had taught him. "I never thought breaking into this place would end up changing my life." His grandfather laughed. "Life's funny that way. What looks like your worst mistake can turn out to be your greatest blessing." As summer turned to fall, the midnight basketball program continued to thrive. Crime rates in the neighborhood dropped noticeably during program hours. Parents reported improved grades and behavior from their children. The waiting list grew longer each week. Jordan kept his promise to bring in other NBA players. Scottie Pippen ran a defensive clinic that had the kids practicing lateral slides until their legs burned. Dennis Rodman taught rebounding techniques. With his usual wild energy, his hair dyed bright green for the occasion. Each visit inspired the kids to work harder, dream bigger. Local businesses began to take notice. A sporting goods store donated new shoes to participants who maintained good grades. A grocery chain provided healthy snacks for program nights. A nearby restaurant sent hot meals for the volunteers and coaches. One night in late September, Darius was locking up when Mr. Jacobs approached him. "Got a minute?" the center director asked. They sat on the bleachers, looking out at the empty court. "Remember when I pressed charges against you?" Mr. Jacobs said. Darius nodded. It seemed like a lifetime ago. "I've been thinking about that night," Mr. Jacobs continued, "about how differently things could have gone." "If Jordan hadn't shown up in court, you mean?" "No," Mr. Jacobs said. "If I had just given you what you needed in the first place, a safe place to practice, a little guidance, a chance to develop your talent. Instead, I got caught up in rules and budgets." "You were doing your job," Darius said generously. "My job is to help young people thrive," Mr. Jacobs corrected him. "Somewhere along the way, I forgot that." He handed Darius an envelope. "Which is why I wanted to give you this." Inside was a letter from the city's Parks and Recreation Department, offering Darius a part-time position as youth basketball coordinator for the entire South Side District. The salary was more than Teresa made at her nursing assistant job. "You'd oversee all the midnight basketball programs," Mr. Jacobs explained. "You'd still be based here, but you'd help develop and standardize the program across all the centers." Darius read the letter twice. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Mr. Jacobs suggested with a smile, echoing Jordan's words from months ago. "You've earned it." That night, Darius shared the news with his mom and grandfather over dinner in their apartment. Teresa had taken on fewer shifts at her second job, allowing her more time with her father and son. The apartment felt warmer somehow, filled with family and new possibilities. "I'm so proud of you, baby," Teresa said, her eyes shining. "From facing charges to running city programs in 6 months. Who does that?" "Someone with the Wilson-Thomas determination," his grandfather said proudly. "It runs in the family." Later that week, Jordan stopped by the center during the younger kids' session. He stood quietly at the back, watching as Darius coached. When Darius finally noticed him, Jordan motioned him over. "You've got a natural teaching ability," Jordan observed. "Those kids respect you." "I just treat them the way I wished someone had treated me," Darius explained. "Like they matter. Like their dreams are worth pursuing." Jordan nodded approvingly. "I heard about the city position. Congratulations. I couldn't have done any of this without you," Darius said. "Sure you could have," Jordan disagreed. "Maybe not in this way or at this time, but talent and determination always find a path. I just helped clear some obstacles." They watched the kids running drills, their faces focused and eager. One boy, about 10 years old, was struggling with his dribbling. Darius excused himself and went over to help, kneeling down to demonstrate the proper technique. The boy's face lit up when he finally got it right. "That right there," Jordan said when Darius returned, "is why we do this." That moment when a kid realizes they can do something they thought was impossible. "I live for those moments now," Darius admitted. Jordan checked his watch. "I've got to run, but I wanted to invite you to a special event next month. The Bulls are retiring my jersey again." Darius looked confused. "Didn't they already retire your number 23? "Yes," Jordan said with a smile. "But I also wore number 45, briefly when I came back from playing baseball. The team wants to honor that too." It's mostly an excuse for a fundraiser for the foundation, but I'd like you and your family to be there. VIP seats. We wouldn't miss it, Darius promised. As fall progressed, the program continued to expand. A fourth night was added at the Westside Center. The local high school basketball coach began attending regularly, recruiting promising players for his team. 3 seniors received college scholarship offers after scouts visited during a special showcase night. Darius's reputation grew throughout the city. Other community centers requested his help in setting up similar programs. A local newspaper ran a feature story about him titled, "From Court Trouble to Court Success." His probation officer used his story as an example in her other cases. One cold evening in November, as snow fell gently outside, Darius was working late in his office when there was a knock at the door. A boy about 12 years old stood there, looking nervous. "Coach Wilson?" the boy asked. "My name's Anthony. I was wondering—" He hesitated, then blurted out, "I was wondering if I could get some extra practice time. I'm not very good yet, but I really want to make my school team." Darius looked at the boy, skinny, determined, hungry to improve. He saw himself 5 years ago. He saw Jordan 40 years ago. He saw the cycle continuing. "The gym's supposed to be closed now," Darius said seriously. Anthony's face fell in disappointment. Darius reached into his pocket and pulled out his keys. He removed one and held it out to the boy. "But I think we can make an exception. This is the key to the side door. You can use it to practice on Sundays when the center is closed. 2 conditions: you clean up after yourself and you lock up properly." Anthony's eyes widened. "Really? You'd trust me with a key?" "Sometimes," Darius said, "all it takes is one person believing in you." Anthony clutched the key tightly, as if afraid it might disappear. "I won't let you down, Coach Wilson. I promise." "I know you won't," Darius said. He recognized the same determination in Anthony's eyes that had driven him to break into the center months ago. But this time, there would be no security alarms, no police, no charges, just a boy and a basketball and the time he needed to improve. As December arrived, Chicago transformed into a winter wonderland. Christmas lights decorated the community center, and a large tree stood in the lobby, adorned with handmade ornaments created by program participants. The Midnight Basketball program planned a special holiday celebration for all the kids and their families. Darius spent hours organizing the event. There would be a tournament, awards for most improved players, and a special appearance by several Bulls players, arranged, of course, by Jordan. Every child would receive a gift bag with basketball gear and school supplies. The night before the celebration, Darius, his mother, and grandfather stayed late at the center, hanging decorations and setting up tables for the refreshments. "I never thought I'd see a Christmas like this," Teresa said, stringing lights around a basketball hoop. "For so many years, it was just you and me, trying to make the best of things. And now look at us," Darius said, handing her more lights. "Planning a party for hundreds of kids." Wilson Thomas watched them from his ladder, where he was hanging a banner. "Family has a way of finding itself again," he said, "even when it takes decades." The next evening, the center was packed. Families filled the bleachers. Children raced around excitedly. Volunteers served hot chocolate and cookies. The tournament games were competitive but friendly, with enthusiastic cheering from the crowd. Jordan arrived midway through the event, causing a stir as always. He moved through the crowd, signing autographs and posing for photos, but making sure to spend time with each child, asking about their progress and goals. When it was time for the awards ceremony, Jordan took the microphone. "First, Let's give a huge round of applause to the person who made all this possible, Coach Darius Wilson. The crowd erupted in cheers. Darius waved awkwardly, still not entirely comfortable in the spotlight. 6 months ago, Jordan continued, this program didn't exist. The center closed early. Kids had nowhere safe to go in the evenings. Now look around you. This is what happens when one person refuses to give up on their dream, and when a community comes together to support its young people. Jordan began calling up kids to receive their awards. Most improved shooter, best teammate, hardest worker. Each child beamed with pride as they received their certificate and gift bag. Finally, all the awards had been distributed, and the celebration was winding down. Jordan asked for everyone's attention one last time. Before we end tonight, I want to share something with all of you that I haven't talked about publicly before, he said, his voice growing serious. Something that connects directly to this program and to Coach Wilson. The room fell silent. Darius looked at Jordan questioningly. 40 years ago, Jordan began, I was caught breaking into my high school gym to practice basketball after hours. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This was not a story most people had heard before. The school janitor, Mr. Wilson Thomas, found me shooting at 1 a.m. when the building was supposed to be locked. The principal wanted to suspend me, maybe even press charges. Jordan gestured toward Wilson Thomas, who stood straighter at the recognition. But Mr. Thomas stepped in. He told the principal he'd given me permission to use the gym, even though he hadn't. He risked his job for a kid who loved basketball. The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. After that night, Mr. Thomas gave me my own key to the gym. He made me promise 2 things: to lock up properly after each practice, and to someday help someone else the same way he'd helped me. Jordan walked over to where Darius and his grandfather stood side by side. When I read about Darius Wilson being arrested for breaking into this community center to practice basketball, something felt familiar. After meeting him, I called my old high school coach to confirm a suspicion I had. He placed one hand on Darius's shoulder and the other on Wilson Thomas's. Wilson Thomas saved my basketball career before it began. Today, I'm just returning the favor to his grandson. Gasps echoed through the gym as people realized what Jordan was saying. Darius, already knowing the connection, still felt the power of having it shared publicly. Sometimes life brings us full circle in ways we could never imagine. Jordan continued, a key given in kindness 40 years ago led to opportunities I could never have dreamed of. And now, that same spirit of giving chances to those who deserve them lives on in this program and in Coach Wilson's work with each of you. Teresa wiped tears from her eyes as she watched her father and son stand beside the basketball legend. Her family's story, once broken by hardship and separation, had become something remarkable, a testament to perseverance, to second chances, and to the power of one person believing in another. After the celebration ended and the center had been cleaned up, Darius found himself alone in the gym with Jordan and his grandfather. The 3 of them sat on the bleachers, looking out at the court where so many lives had been changed over the past months. I have something for both of you, Jordan said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small box and opened it. Inside were 2 keys on identical Chicago Bulls keychains. These are symbolic, Jordan explained. Keys to the United Center. Only a few people have them. He handed one to Wilson Thomas and one to Darius. A reminder that doors should be opened, not closed, for those willing to work for their dreams. Wilson, Thomas held his key with trembling hands. 40 years ago, I gave a key to a determined young man because I saw something special in him. I never imagined where that small act would lead." "That's how kindness works," Jordan said. "You never know how far the ripples will spread." Darius turned his key over in his hand, feeling its weight. "So much of my life has changed because of a key," he said thoughtfully. "The one I didn't have that led me to break in. The one Mr. Jacobs gave me when I started working here, and now this one." "Keys open doors," his grandfather said, "but you still have to walk through them yourself." The story of their connection made national news the next day. Reporters called it the key to success and 3 generations of basketball dreams. Darius was interviewed by local stations. His mother spoke about finding her father after so many years. Wilson Thomas shared stories of young Michael Jordan's determination. Judge Martinez held a press conference, admitting she had no idea about the connection when she made her ruling that day in court. "Sometimes justice works in mysterious ways," she said, wiping away a tear. What looked like a simple case of breaking and entering turned out to be part of a much larger story about second chances and the power of mentorship. The publicity brought more attention to the Midnight Basketball program. Cities across the country reached out, wanting to implement similar programs in their communities. Jordan's foundation created a toolkit to help them get started, with Darius's input on best practices. In January, Darius received acceptance letters from 3 colleges, all offering basketball scholarships. He chose Chicago State University, which would allow him to continue his work with the program while pursuing a degree in education. "I want to be a teacher and coach," he explained to Jordan. "Help kids the way you and Grandpa helped me." Jordan nodded approvingly. The circle continues. As winter turned to spring, the program expanded to 5 nights a week. Crime rates in the neighborhood during program hours dropped to nearly 0. School attendance among participants improved dramatically. The waiting list grew so long that Jordan's foundation funded renovations at 2 more community centers to accommodate the demand. In April, exactly 1 year after Darius's arrest, a special ceremony was held at the Westside Community Center. The gym was officially renamed the Wilson Thomas Court. A large photograph hung at the entrance, 3 generations standing side by side: Wilson Thomas, Michael Jordan, and Darius Wilson. Below the photo, a plaque read, "Sometimes all it takes is one person believing in you." Mayor Thompson attended the ceremony, praising the program as a model for urban youth engagement. What happened in this building over the past year proves that when we invest in our young people and give them safe spaces to grow, amazing things happen. After the speeches and applause, Darius found himself standing at center court with his grandfather and Jordan. "I never thought breaking into this place would lead to all this," Darius said, looking around at the packed bleachers. "Life's funny. That way," his grandfather replied. "Your biggest mistake can become your greatest blessing." Jordan nodded in agreement. "The most important thing is what you do with the chances you're given." Later that evening, after everyone had gone home, Darius heard the side door open. Anthony, the boy he'd given the key to months ago, walked in carrying a basketball. The boy had grown several inches and moved with new confidence. "Coach Wilson," Anthony said, surprised to find Darius still there. "I was just coming to practice. My team has a big game tomorrow." "How's the shot coming along?" Darius asked. "Much better," Anthony said proudly. "I made the school team, just like I wanted to." "Show me," Darius said, gesturing toward the hoop. Anthony dribbled to the free throw line and sank 5 shots in a row, his form nearly perfect. "You've been practicing," Darius observed. "Every Sunday," Anthony confirmed, "just like I promised." He hesitated, then added, "There's this kid at school, Marcus. He's really trying to get better at basketball too, but he doesn't have anywhere to practice. I was wondering if he could join you?" Darius finished the thought. Anthony nodded. "Is that okay?" Darius smiled, remembering Judge Martinez's grandson. "Bring him next time. The more the merrier." After Anthony left, Darius sat alone on the bleachers, looking at the gleaming court that now bore his grandfather's name. He thought about all the twists his life had taken in the past year, from facing criminal charges to running a citywide program, from not knowing his grandfather to discovering a legacy of mentorship that stretched back decades. The next morning, Darius arrived early at the center to find someone waiting at the door. It was Officer Pete Jenkins, the policeman who had arrested him that night in April. "Officer Jenkins," Darius said, unlocking the door. "What brings you here?" "Actually, it's about my son," the officer said, looking slightly uncomfortable. "He's 14, loves basketball, but he's shy, afraid to join a team because he thinks he's not good enough." Jenkins shifted his weight. "I was hoping maybe you could work with him a bit, one-on-one." Darius remembered how Jenkins had treated him kindly during the arrest, letting him call his mom, speaking to him with respect. "Bring him by this afternoon," Darius said. "I'll be here." The officer's face brightened. "Really? That would be great." "Thank you." As Jenkins turned to leave, Darius called after him, "Officer Jenkins?" The policeman looked back. "Thank you for arresting me that night," Darius said sincerely. "Strange as it sounds, it was the best thing." "That could have happened to me," Jenkins smiled. "That might be a first. Someone thanking me for an arrest." Later that day, watching Jenkins's son tentatively dribbling a basketball, Darius thought about how life's hardest moments often led to unexpected blessings. His arrest had connected him to his grandfather, given him purpose, and opened doors he never knew existed. As he showed the boy how to position his hands for a proper shot, Darius remembered his grandfather's words. "The greatest gift you can give is to pass on what you've received." The ball arced perfectly and swished through the net. The boy's face lit up with surprise and joy. That magical moment when someone realizes they can do something they thought was impossible. Darius smiled. The circle was complete. Thank you for joining us for this heartwarming tale of second chances, mentorship, and the power of kindness. The story of Michael Jordan, Darius Wilson, and Wilson Thomas reminds us that sometimes our greatest challenges can lead to unexpected blessings, and that one person believing in us can change the course of our lives forever. Where are you listening from? We'd love to know which corner of the world this story reached. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring and interesting stories just like this one. Your support helps us continue creating content that touches hearts and spreads positive messages. Don't forget to share this video with your friends and family. After all, spreading kindness and awareness is something we can all do, just like the characters in our story. Sometimes the smallest actions create the biggest ripples. Until next time, remember that sometimes all it takes is one person believing in you to change everything.